Poland's leader warned on Sunday that the migrant crisis on its border with Belarus could be a prelude to something worse.
Poland deploys thousands of troops as the border crisis with Belarus deepens.
Today, the volatile situation at the border went to the next level. Polish riot police fired tear gas and unleashed water cannon on migrants after they were pelted with stones.
Prime Minister Tusk's defiance echoes nationalist waves, just like President Trump's crackdown on illegal migrants in the United States.
In 2021, Poland faced a crisis unlike anything in its modern history when Belarus weaponized thousands of migrants from the Middle East and Africa, pushing them toward Poland's border as part of a deliberate hybrid attack. And this wasn't simply migration. It was an international act of hybrid warfare. Many Belarusian security forces even gave migrants directions on how to cross into Poland and handed out wire cutters and axes to cut through border barriers. And others were given money. Under the promise of easy access to the European Union, Alexander Lukashenko, the dictator of Belarus and close ally of Vladimir Putin, had organized an industrial-scale human trafficking operation. Makeshift camps emerged in freezing forests as waves of migrants attempted to breach the border, creating a humanitarian emergency unlike anything seen in modern Polish history. Polish border guards were overwhelmed, local communities terrified, and the nation's sovereignty directly threatened. The EU stood paralyzed, leaving Poland to confront the crisis alone. Yet, in a surprising turn, Poland took swift and shocking action, reducing illegal crossings by nearly 100% within months. But how did they achieve what others thought was impossible? And what lessons can other nations learn from their response? Today, we reveal how Poland solved the immigration crisis and why this matters for Europe's future. In response to the 2021 Belarus-European Union border crisis, Poland implemented a series of strong measures to curb illegal crossings and protect its sovereignty. Firstly, the country completed a 5.5-meter high, 115-mile-long steel fence along its border with Belarus. This physical barrier has been a cornerstone of Poland's border security strategy, costing approximately 350 million euros, $370 million. Next, a 60-kilometer no-go zone was established along the eastern border. This zone, also known as a buffer or exclusion zone, restricts access for humanitarian workers, journalists, and even aid workers, effectively excluding them from the area. This no-go zone has been criticized by human rights organizations for hindering humanitarian efforts to assist migrants, including women and children, who may be stranded in the area. It has also faced backlash for its costs, which the Polish government announced in 2024 could cost up to 10 billion zlotys, $2.5 billion. According to Reuters, many locals have also expressed concerns around the fact that it could deter tourists as well. However, Defense Minister Władysław Kosiniak-Kamysz stated that local businesses will get a boost from all the army, police, and border guards using accommodation, and added that the presence of security services will also make visitors feel safer, and some businesses may be able to get compensation. Although it may seem drastic to some, this measure's main aim is to reduce illegal immigration, and it has worked. As reported by gov.pl in September 2024, by this point in the year, the number of attempted irregular border crossings fell by 64%. The costs of establishing and maintaining the zones, such as increased patrols, fencing, and surveillance, have been pricey. And in December 2024, despite being accused of brutality, Poland was allocated a further 52 million euros by the European Commission to bolster surveillance and infrastructure along the country's eastern border. In March 2025, Poland then enacted a law suspending the right to apply for asylum for individuals crossing the border illegally from Belarus. While this legal move is controversial and once again criticized by human rights groups, it is part of Poland's broader strategy to deter illegal entries. The law was promptly criticized by rights groups, including Human Rights Watch, which said that the EU should take legal action against Poland if it was implemented. However, Prime Minister Donald Tusk fully backs his decision, saying, "Nobody is talking about violating human rights, the right to asylum. We are talking about not granting applications to people who illegally cross the border in groups organized by Lukashenko." Poland has also deployed additional troops and invested in surveillance technology, such as drones, cameras, and sensors to monitor the border area effectively. This high-tech approach is modeled on the Greek border with Turkey, which uses long-range cameras and radars costing upwards of $18 million. By 2022, Poland was already spending 2.4% of GDP on defense, with border control counting towards this sector, ranking third in NATO after the United States and Greece. Today, Poland remains committed to opposing EU-wide migration quotas and relocation schemes. In May 2025, Prime Minister Donald Tusk reaffirmed that Poland would not accept illegal immigrants into its territory. While this stance does not involve direct costs, it influences national policy and resource allocation, reinforcing the country's commitment to border control. After Germany stated that it would reject undocumented migrants, including asylum seekers, Tusk quickly followed suit, saying, "So that there is no real impression that anyone, including Germany, would like to send any groups of migrants to Poland. Poland will not accept this." So, with Poland now a good few years into its major clampdown on immigration, the question is, did it actually work? While historically a nation of immigrants and one of the world's most ethnically homogenous countries, it's clear that's no longer the case. By the end of 1949, 150,000 Polish soldiers and their dependents had settled in the UK, and their descendants continue to make up a large part of the UK's Polish population. The most significant influx of Polish people into the UK occurred after Poland joined the European Union in 2004. Now, fewer people are leaving Poland, and many migrants are returning. But at the same time, thousands upon thousands of immigrants are risking their lives to get into the country, which explains why the government has so firmly clamped down. The Prime Minister Tusk said it himself. In a short time, Poland changed its status from a country from which people immigrate to that of a country which people immigrate. In December 2024, Tusk made it known that it is illegal immigration that is the main problem in this crisis. During a cabinet meeting, he said, "We do not want to hinder the employment of those who want to work honestly in Poland, but we have launched a ruthless fight against illegal immigration, against abuse, against the exploitation of legal loopholes or state weakness." Poland's migration policy runs until 2030 and is entitled Regain Control, Ensure Safety. When Prime Minister Tusk came into power, he immediately threw jabs at the former government, claiming that the lack of real oversight and chaos resulting from the previous government's migration policy meant that hundreds of thousands of people from Asia and Africa ended up in Poland. Thanks to the current government's measures, 31% fewer visas of all kinds were granted in H1 2024 compared to the same period in 2023. When it comes to Poland's seemingly impenetrable border, it is reportedly guarded by thousands of police officers, soldiers, and border guard officers. According to The Guardian, Poland's eastern frontier is now patrolled by 6,000 soldiers, 2,200 border guards, and police. While there have been reports of brutality at the border, in 2024, 2 people lost their lives, compared to 18 people in 2023, but many argue this is simply because Belarusians are now too afraid to try and enter. In February 2025, Dahir, a 17-year-old boy originally from Somalia, told Polish aid workers that he was shot with rubber bullets by Polish border guards as he attempted to cross the frontier in October 2024. Others have made allegations of Polish border guards restraining hands with zip ties, smashing phones, chasing people with dogs, pepper spraying faces, confiscating coats and shoes after strip searches, and throwing people into swamps and rivers back over the border. And The Guardian also noted that many people have chosen to return to Belarus because they did not want to seek asylum in Poland, preferring to try another way of sneaking in. But if we circle back to Poland's approach, it is not opposed to migration if done properly and legally. According to Notes from Poland, Poland's population is set to shrink 23% by 2100, the 7th largest decline in the EU. And in order to maintain its current ratio of working-age population to retirees, Poland would need to attract almost 2 million immigrant workers over the next decade. Just as the crackdown on illegal immigration kicked off in 2021, Poland issued more first residence permits to non-EU immigrants than any other EU member state for the 5th year running, highlighting the fact that it will accept migrants who go about the process properly. Poland issued almost 1 million permits in 2021, more than twice as much as any other country and 1/3 of the EU total. But one thing's for sure, it will not tolerate illegal immigration. So, can other countries adopt Poland's approach, or are they too excessive? Poland's management of the 2021 migration crisis shows a clear picture of decisive action and measurable success. Although its immigration situation has been described as a paradox, making international news with the unbelievable outpouring of support to Ukrainian refugees from both the government and the local population after the Russian invasion in 2022, when it comes to its tensions with Belarus, many have hailed Poland's crackdown as inhumane. But on the flip side, the European Commission has accused the Belarusian government of tricking migrants and refugees with false promises of easy access to the European Union in what it called a gangster-style approach to a long-running migrant crisis. And the timeline reflects a strategic evolution that we can break down. Between 2020 and 2021, Belarus deliberately orchestrated a migration crisis at Poland's border, weaponizing migrants to destabilize the region. People arrived legally in Belarus from Afghanistan, Syria, or Iraq, and were then taken to the border with Poland for a price of $8,000 to $12,000. But it didn't take long for Poland to respond, declaring a state of emergency and deploying over 15,000 troops to secure the border. Between 2022 and 2023, Poland completed a 186-kilometer high-tech border barrier, equipped with motion sensors and cameras to monitor crossings. Within a year, illegal border crossings plummeted from thousands monthly to near zero, with recent data showing a 99.3% reduction in irregular crossings. In 2022, over 40,000 attempted crossings were prevented. By 2024, fewer than 300 successful crossings occurred. The Polish Border Guard actively publishes updated statistics, demonstrating transparency and effectiveness. This aggressive yet targeted approach contrasts sharply with the ongoing migration pressures faced by neighboring countries, many of which continue to grapple with large inflows and less comprehensive border security measures. While Poland's strategy has proven highly effective, showing that firm border control can drastically reduce illegal crossings, the question remains: can other nations afford or justify such extensive measures? For some, the costs, both financial and political, may be way too high, and the approach may be seen as excessive or incompatible with international human rights standards. For others, especially those facing persistent migration pressures, a similar level of intervention might be necessary but requires careful balancing of security, humanitarian considerations, and diplomatic relations. Ultimately, Poland's recent success provides a potential blueprint, but whether it is scalable or appropriate depends heavily on each country's unique context, resources, and values. But we must point out that between 2023 and 2024, the EU began shifting its approach to migration management, with several new policies reflecting a more assertive stance reminiscent of Poland's methods. One notable development is the series of EU border externalization agreements with countries like Tunisia, Libya, and Morocco. These agreements aim to prevent migrants from reaching Europe by strengthening cooperation with transit and source countries, an approach directly inspired by Poland's emphasis on controlling borders outside the EU. By investing in border security and migration prevention at external points, the EU hopes to reduce illegal crossings and manage migration flows more effectively. But technically, many of Poland's measures are not unique to the country. For example, its 2025 to 2030 immigration strategy has parts that are clearly inspired by other countries. For example, only migrants who serve the economy, according to a point system, will be eligible to work in Poland, a strategy that has been utilized by countries like Australia, Canada, and New Zealand. So it could be well that the world is watching as Poland's crackdown on illegal immigration continues to unfold, and based on its success, other nations could follow anytime soon, just like Poland did itself. What about how Greece is devastated by its immigration crisis?